I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Le Mans is over. Racing is life. Anything before or after is just waiting. All right, Andy, here we are.
Here we are.
What'd you think? Did you like it?
Le Mans was a film that, cut a good hour plus from the runtime that we had on Grand Prix, which was pushing 3 hours. This was just under 2 hours. Yet it felt like 24 hours. This film took forever. I hated this movie.
You did?
Absolutely hated it. It was like, good God, are we ever going to end?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate things about it. I appreciate that. I don't know. We'll talk about kind of the production. How much of the decisions really boiled down to Steve McQueen? How many boiled down to John Sturges when he was involved? What about Lee H. Katzin? Like, it's very like this interesting kind of documentary approach to how they tell the story.
Right.
Lots of just random footage of people. Like, you really get a sense that this almost felt like a what's the filmmaker's name? Frederick Wiseman documentary, where it's just the camera looking at stuff for like 4 hours. Like, that's how Wiseman makes his films. You're just like, his documentary Zoo is like a 4 hour documentary, and you're just like looking at all of these different things and how people take care of the animals and the people who are going to the zoo and the fundraisers that they have at night after the zoo is closed. Like, you're just seeing all of this stuff, a day in the life of the zoo. This was like a day in the life of this 24-hour period. You're watching the police get ready, the people sleeping in the fields, so 70s. People like, everything like had this documentary approach to it, which I found interesting and I appreciated, but it was kind of glacial. Like, the way that the thing was put together was I don't know, like, the race was completely not interesting at all. And I had all these questions like, why are they letting all these little cars in the race too? Like, I couldn't figure out like all of these things that they just are also doing.
I'm so glad you bring up these questions. Keep them coming, because I've got things to talk about.
Yeah, it just never really answers it. And you just have this car race. And I just don't like, there are relationships that are kind of developed. I appreciate that they actually went to the effort of doing it in a different style. Like, we open the film with him seeing some strange woman. We don't know who she is. He goes and stares at a fence. I was kind of able to figure out what had happened there before the director decided to. Now we're going to do a long zoom in on Steve McQueen's face. Now we're going to do a long zoom in on the fence. Like, he was overdoing like stuff that just made it so obvious. But at least it was, kind of done in a not so overt a way. So I appreciated some of that. But then we get to like the characters and the stories, and I'm like, okay, we kind of know that there's some stuff going on between these characters, but there's just like nothing exciting about any of it. So it just was like, Steve McQueen, I love Steve McQueen. I love he's into racing. I love he's passionate about all this sort of stuff. And I'm sure, especially since they started this before Grand Prix and finished it 5 years after Grand Prix, they probably said, we need to come at it from a different direction. And they do, and I appreciate that, but man, it just was a total snooze. I fell asleep at one point, and there was just so much random footage of racing. I'm like, I have no idea where I fell asleep, and I had to like back it up and start the movie over again, because I'm like, Jesus. And then it was like,
and then you
40
minutes. You hadn't missed anything at all.
Yeah, 40 minutes like in the film before somebody actually has any form of a conversation. It's just like, wow, this is, and I sound like somebody who doesn't appreciate an artistic approach to film. I definitely do. Yeah. I'm Artsy Andy after all. But man, I could not with this one.
Okay. Well,
that was a lot. There you go. Sorry.
So, all right. So I'm going to give you all of that. It is well deserved. It's a struggle of a film in many ways. I wonder if you were more of a racing fan, if you would have connected to it differently. And so, of course, we're going to talk about Le Mans. But the other thing that I think that is interesting about it is we're also going to watch Ford versus Ferrari, which is a story about Le Mans. And the difference between the two is one of them is the experience of Le Mans, and the other one is a story about Le Mans. And I prefer the latter. When I go to a movie, I actually prefer, seeing a narrative. And this one doesn't give me that. And I think part of the problem that we have with it is, as scary as some of the driving was, and let me just say from the top, the experience of the race has never been captured better, right? It's a slog of a race with way too many people, and particularly in this era of the race, it was incredibly dangerous. Like, people were way too close to the track. I mean, to the course, and I felt,
but nobody gets killed in this one.
Right.
No,
That's
no
right.
onlookers. Yeah.
No onlookers get killed in this one. That is different. That is a difference. But the experience, the opening experience, I found so claustrophobic, because that was all shot at Le Mans. So many people, I thought, how would anybody ever want to attend a live race like that? That seems excruciating. And I thought that emotional experience, I think they captured pretty well. The zooms, the crash zooms, the like all the cuts, the editing was, I think, of its time. I found it disastrous. I felt like it took me way out of the race. And because there was so little story, and maybe because Steve McQueen had only 12 lines, I think, in the movie, I didn't feel much for anyone. It never let me feel for anyone. All that said, I didn't hate the movie because I love the race. I think it's cool. And so I have to ask you, what do you know about Le Mans? Did you know anything going into this movie? Did it teach you anything about it? My hunch is no.
Well, I mean, I had seen Ford v Ferrari a while back, and so I knew like what Le Mans was and kind of how the race went. I didn't know that they allowed cars of all varieties, and they do mention that. I had to turn on it's an interesting sound design, because they use the announcer as a form of exposition to kind of explain what's going on, but it's kind of in the background and not always easy to hear. So I actually turned the subtitles on so I can actually go, oh, okay, this is what they're talking about. But then also sound wise, like, it's almost as if it's meant to not be listened to, because there are times where other people start talking in a foreign language, and that pushes the sound of the announcer down, so you don't get to hear what the announcer's talking about, or car engines and stuff are revving, so you don't always get to actually hear stuff. And I mean, I think that speaks to creating this world. Like, from start to finish, every time you have the racers talking to one another or talking to their, I don't know, coach, I don't know what his role is, but the head guy of the team, you don't ever hear the conversation. You just see their mouths moving and they're yelling at each other, but it's all over car engines. And so there's like, rah, rah. You see them talking, but we don't get to know what the conversation is. Once in a while you do, like, oh, the brakes are doing fine, or he doesn't like it, pass him in such and such, he doesn't like it, or whatever. Like, you get a few little glimpses, but not much. And even when we're having conversations off the track, like, we have a few times when Steve McQueen goes and talks to Lisa, and even those conversations are minimal, like minimal, very minimal. I'm sorry, I totally went off the Le Mans conversation.
No, you're great. You're great.
Yeah. But yeah, back to Le Mans. Yeah, it's
Le Mans.
I know that it's 24 hours. I couldn't remember in the movie Le Mans, or the movie Ford v Ferrari, if they're trading drivers. I guess they must have, because that seemed to be a thing. I just always pictured Christian Bale driving, but he must have been changing. Yeah. So I guess I had just forgotten that. I think the thing that most surprised me is that just you have such a variety of cars, including little tiny, like, Fiat sorts of cars driving on the track that lead to a particular accident for McQueen.
It's crazy, right? It is crazy, but that is exactly how it's done. The cars and classes have changed over the years, but they still have multiple cars and classes on the road at the same time. including hypercars, right? These hybrid Le Mans hypercars that'll hit 215 miles an hour, and stock sports cars and little modified other cars, but they're all racing at the same time because the race is not about it is not only about speed, right? The race is about distance. That's the whole thing. Whoever wins is the car that drove the farthest in 24 hours. And that's different than a lot of races. So endurance is actually the key driver here. And if you drive fast, you're taking a lot more risks of accident. And a slower car can actually win because, it's a tortoise and the hare thing. That's kind of the whole model. It is there multiple drivers share a car. Back then it was often two. Now it's three. So there are required rest periods, just like there were. It is. Let's see. I have so many notes on things I wanted to talk about that I am dizzy with excitement about Le Mans. The track is 8.5 miles long. It is the Circuit de la Sarthe. Circuit de la Sarthe. It's very close to Le Mans, the town in France. The highest speed section, which we see over and over in this in this movie, is the Mulsanne Straight, and that's where they hit the highest speeds. These cars at the time were incredibly dangerous. Many of them had no seat belts in them because the drivers were afraid of being caught in fires. They weren't unibody cars, so the frame was separate from the body on the outside, which is why you see in the crashes they shred like paper mache in this movie. Many of the cars in this movie were the real cars. They were just rockets with paper mache cases on them. That has long been diminished. The top speeds of the cars in this era was 240 miles an hour on that Mulsanne Straight, and now they top out at 215, 205, 215. So it's incredibly dangerous. The endurance factor is the number one factor of this race. Unlike F1, where you just want to come in first and get the points, this is you want your team to stay awake and stay healthy and stay hydrated and be able to keep the car running the longest. So it's crazy that we have these prototype sports cars, these custom built, Porsches and Ferraris. The Porsche 917 of the era was the sort of supreme car against the Ferrari 512, which is what we see in the film, and that was really the horse race of the era. But these GT cars, these Grand Touring cars that are just modified road-going sports cars that you might see at your neighborhood stoplight, are also on this race. It's like we were talking about the Nürburgring, where you can just take your, Subaru and run it as fast as you can next to, a Porsche and a Ferrari and, these incredibly fast sports cars. So that's a little bit about the race.
And it's the same track today as it was at this time. Like it's still cutting through this town.
Yes, yeah, but the Mulsanne Straight has been broken up with chicanes, right? So a chicane is like a dog leg, and you see it. We saw it a number of times in the last movie.
As they're getting on, as they're getting back onto the track here, wouldn't that be a dog leg?
Yeah, but a chicane in this case, and when you're talking about a chicane specifically, it's designed to slow down the race. So you'll see it in the more modern F1 races where they're going in what you think is a straight line, and then they have to go, left, right, and everybody has to slow down because if they didn't have a chicane in there, they would reach excessive speeds that are extraordinary. And chicanes allow for more opportunities for overtaking, passing, sloppy driving. Like it really is. It allows you to showcase expertise in the drivership of these athletes. So now the race has changed a little bit, that the chicanes exist to slow down some of those really top speeds that were incredibly dangerous. And I mean, the safety concerns were just rudimentary by today's standards.
He mentions the mall Like that's where he had his accident. Like he came around. He says something about the mall. It was Slow Driver or something. What's the mall?
The Mulsanne Straits coming around. The mall.
So they just
Yeah.
that's just okay.
Yeah.
The subtitles just called it the mall, like a mall. Like
Yeah.
and so
Lots of shorthand. Lots of shorthand.
yeah. Right.
The other piece that we get in this movie, which I think is awesome, and I mean the thing about the Le Mans, which makes it a spectacular race, is the fact that these drivers have to drive the transition from day to night and night to day, and rain to dry and dry to wet. Right, like that's
right.
That's what makes it an incredibly intense race. And I think I don't know why. I wish this movie allowed me to care more about it. There was something about it that this should be the most intense part of the race, and it just felt like everyone was on a break.
Well, yeah, the story of this production. I mean, now might be the time to talk about that. So,
yes,
back in '67, McQueen and John Sturges announced this project that they were going to do together in a racing film. It was very much something that McQueen was passionate about. We talked about passion projects in our member pre-show chat before this. This was his passion project. He had John Sturges on board in 1967. It was called Day of the Champion. Just as a side note, I thought it was very interesting that it sounds like from the beginning, the story was to be a film about Le Mans, yet they had a deal with the Nürburgring, which is why in our last conversation about Grand Prix, that ended up being the thing that required John Frankenheimer to turn over all 27 reels of film that they had shot on the Nürburgring that they weren't allowed to use because Sturges and McQueen had a deal with the Nürburgring that they get to use Nürburgring and feature it in their film, but it's in Le Mans. And so it's that's a weird thing. I don't really understand what their deal was. Anyway.
Well, at some point, there must have been a conversation about making a film that was about racing and not exclusively Le Mans. Because there's no other reason to go to the Nürburgring.
It could have been that, as I recall, it's McQueen and the other driver that he's kind of the competitor with. I'm forgetting his name at the moment. But they mention, or somebody mentions, that their last big competition that they had where it was just like neck and neck. They were the two guys everyone was talking about. I thought that they said it was at the Nürburgring. So it's entirely possible that we were going to see that race before we got to Le Mans, And that would make sense because this film, John Sturges, the story goes, he wanted to make a very traditional Hollywood story. He wanted to make the sort of movie that we probably saw in Grand Prix. He wanted to have very conventional, we'd have relationships of the drivers, we'd have upbeat Hollywood ending and all of this sort of stuff. So I can see him going, let's put this backstory. We'll have that as part of the film. We'll film at the Nürburgring. Like I can see that being possibly the reason for all this. McQueen is the one who said, no, I want this to feel like a racing documentary. I want very little dialogue. I want the cars to be the stars of the film. And I want this to feel like a European movie. He said his inspiration was Claude Lelouch's film, A Man and a Woman. This all led to this rift in production. Sturges was on it for quite a while, but then finally he just couldn't handle it anymore. And he said, he quotes, "I am too old and too rich to put up with this crap." Cleaning up his quote. But basically, he's just like, it's not worth it to me to deal with this actor who's, who clearly has a vision, but it's not what they're giving us money to make. And that ended up being the case because McQueen ended up having budget issues with the film, and he ended up losing. And this was through his production company, Solar Productions, and he had partnered with another production company, CCP, I think is who they were, and they ended up because of all the budget issues that he ran into, they ended up providing more money at the cost of his creative control. So he lost his creative control. They still ended up seeming to deliver essentially kind of the film that looks like what he was trying to make. But what we're getting here with this film really just boils down to McQueen's vision for what he saw this story needed to be.
I'm doing some real-time research.
Oh, okay.
Because okay, it's a little bit of a bummer because Steve McQueen, he did drive the Porsche 917 a little bit while filming Le Mans, but he was largely uninsured to drive too much in the race, so he had to cede that role to professional drivers. But it's really interesting since then. Patrick Dempsey has raced Le Mans 3 times. Michael Fassbender has raced Le Mans, and there is actually a documentary, Road to Le Mans, with about Fassbender's drive with both actors with Porsche. I think it's really interesting, this connection that these actors have to wanting to tackle this particular race. It's an interesting story, and it feels like Steve McQueen would have been the guy to do it of the era. Instead, he made a very slow movie about it.
Yeah, very slow. I mean, it's CCF, Cinema Center Films, not Productions. They actually, in their struggles with McQueen on all of this, as the budget was exploding, they actually wanted to replace him. They were trying to replace him with Robert Redford. They were going to shut down the film, but they finally made a deal with him. He gave up his salary, his percentage of any profits, and his control of the film just so that he could get it finished. Like, yeah, he wanted this story. And I think that it's interesting because, like you're saying, he knew how to drive. He was a racer. Like, in the end credits of the film, it says our drivers, and it lists, like, I don't know how many total drivers there were.
Yeah.
One of them was Steve McQueen. He was literally out there on the track doing his own driving. And I think, I mean, I'm thrilled he had the passion to tell the story about Le Mans, but and it like I said, it was a bold move to tell it this way. It just didn't work for me. Now, I'm curious from your perspective as somebody who's into racing, how does the race play for you? Does any part of the actual race itself? Because, I mean, if McQueen wanted it to feel like a race documentary, do you feel like you're getting that? Do you feel like you're getting a sense of the story, or not the story, but the story of the track, as far as like who's in the lead, who's winning, all of that? And are you getting enough footage to kind of tell you that story in a way that's exciting?
So there are 2 parts to the answer of this question. The first one is the boring part, which is not really about the race, because the race is, I think, not the fault of the film. I think the race is hard to document because it's so long and there are so many different conditions that you have to kind of embrace as you're filming this 24-hour monstrosity. I think it's just challenging to make that story compelling. That said, I've never seen anything quite as good at making me feel the experience of being in the car. That's one of the things that I think is fantastic. Like, I love these cars, but they're, it's really rare to get the camera inside of it to see, like, when he's flipping switches, the ply board that these things are kind of glued together. They look so flashy and sporty, but inside they're horrible, right? They're just awful cages of death and incredibly claustrophobic. And that sensation I got out of this movie. I felt like this is a perspective I wanted, and it delivered. I mean, I still have a Le Mans GT40 hanging on my wall of wonders here. Like, I'm a huge fan of these cars, and to be inside of one, I thought was exhilarating. I think if I try to divorce myself from my own fandom, it's a tough watch. Like, I don't know that you'd get a whole lot out of it. I mean, you aren't a fan. Did you feel some of the similar experiences?
No, like, I mean, and it was very weird because, like, the film starts and they seem to make a big deal about number 25, like, pulling ahead of McQueen. And I don't know who they were. They were a white car. Number 25 is in the lead. And and that seems to go for a little while till he finally has to stop to do whatever. And then number 25 never comes into the picture again. And I'm like, was I supposed to pay attention to number 25? And so it was just odd. And then, it seems to be like they're really kind of driving up the relationship that he has, as I mentioned, kind of like there's this, this thing that he has with Stoller is the other guy's name, Eric Stoller, who's driving for Ferrari. And I think, and I don't know, I was confused with the cars because I'm like, I thought he was Porsche, but then everything says Gulf. So I didn't know, but I think he's Porsche, but I don't really know.
Gulf was a sponsor. Yeah. Gulf Oil. They were driving Porsches.
But they have so many things all over the shirt. I don't know who's the sponsor. There's also Firestone on all this
because
stuff.
Remember, there are multiple.
He's got like a chronograph Hoyer on his thing. Like he's got so many things. I'm like, and then I was like, does he even say Porsche anywhere? I don't think he has Porsche on his outfit. So I don't know. It was like, it wasn't easy for me to tell.
Well, because
I just like blue, red, white. And then later,
because there are multiple Porsche teams, right? That's one of the things that's interesting because the Gulf Porsche team is different from, and then the red is Ferrari. Like that's the one that's easy to remember.
I just thought they were all like, see, that's like, Ferrari. That makes it even worse to have multiple Porsche teams. Like, how dumb is that? Like, I just thought they were all the one team. Like, I don't know. Because then they also have multiple cars. So,
well, the other thing is, Andy, the announcer gives a tutorial at the beginning of the movie.
But again, he's like half there, and sometimes he's being cut off by people talking. And I'm like, do they care if I'm listening to this guy? I don't know. And it's like, it was done like McQueen achieved, very documentary style. It wasn't easy for me to like fully understand the race. If the idea was for race fans to appreciate and feel like, hey, I finally got to go to Le Mans because I watched this movie, great. For people who aren't race fans to watch it and go, okay, I know they're racing for 24 hours, but I couldn't really figure out who's on whose team and what. They're all these shaggy-haired guys wearing helmets and face coverings. I don't know. It made it difficult for me to figure out like how I was supposed to tell and who I was supposed to care about.
We need to talk about the end. Because for a movie that is so incredibly understated, the end is just icing on an understated cake. And I would like to know if you understood from what the movie gave you, what happened in that final act.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought it was pretty easy to understand, honestly, by the time we got there. Like you've got a Ferrari guy who's in the lead and seems to be way in the lead, and Deus Ex Machina, flat tire that puts him out of the race right at the end, just totally like our last movie where it was like, nope, you're pulled out. Somebody died.
Black flag.
So we're
not
going to finish you. So sorry, flat tire, you're done. And so then it's down to our main guys, but the second place guy happens to also be a guy on Michael's team. That's Steve McQueen, who now is first place. And really, it now boils down to second and third place, Michael versus Eric, the big duel that they've always, apparently everybody talks about how there's this thing between the two of them, and they're both great drivers. And Eric, I think, won last time, and it's the two of them. And and then I think, as I recall, like Michael pulled in front of him, like right toward the end. And so is the two Porsches that come in. And so this Porsche team, now I'll say, ends up winning over Ferrari, over Eric.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of it.
And that is the subdued ending, right? The fact that the chief crew, the Porsche team chief went in and said, I'm pulling the other driver. I want you to drive.
Right. I didn't mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though your car is out, I want you to get in this other car and I want you to drive because I want our Porsche team to win this race. And, explicitly saying we need a 1-2 finish. I don't want a split finish. Like we have to win as a team and as drivers 1-2. And we're going to put you, I think you're the best person to do it because they knew he had to make up time against the other Porsche team and Ferrari. And then you're right, Deus Ex Machina, like things happen that happen to put these cars perfectly in place for a shootout for 2 and 3, and then we get that equally subdued bit after the win as everybody's celebrating, and the team chief comes over and says to Michael, "Thank you," right? And Delaney just nods. He's just present. He's just there. He's the emotional equivalent of the rest of the movie, present.
Yeah. Right.
And he secured the Porsche 1-2 win. He did the best he could, and he is recovered his I don't know, you say confidence, respect to the crew, all of that is implied that he's sort of back. And he did it by taking it away from the guy who said, I could win this race earlier, and this is also going to be my last race.
Right.
That was, I think, it's kind of heartbreaking. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. It was brutal, but also done in such a casual way that you just didn't care. Like, he's just like,
this is the problem.
Crappy way to go out, but oh well. Yeah. And his wife's like, you were quitting anyway. And I'm just like, okay, so I don't really care. Like, it was so lacking in giving us any interest, like purposefully designed to not allow us to care for anybody. Very strange.
Very strange.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm with you. I think as a result of all of that, my fandom buoys my appreciation for this movie probably more than yours. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think we are in violent agreement.
I mean, do you know much about Katzin as a director?
No.
Like, my sense, because
apart from reading up on him for the show, but I'm not a real Katz head.
He's like largely a TV guy, like TV movies, lots of TV episodes. He only has directed, I don't know, like 10, 11 actual feature films. This is one of them. He's assistant directed a number of them. He's only directed 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 feature films. Not a lot. And I haven't seen any of the other ones. My sense of him, considering so much of his work is TV, is that this was kind of like a director for hire sort of job, much like we get now in like the Marvel properties or any of these big properties where these producers of massive franchises bring on kind of a lesser director who they can pretty much control as their puppet to get what they want. And so that was kind of my sense of Katzin as the director here. And like, I would be curious, like, how much of the interesting creative ways of like doing some of that storytelling in the documentary style. He's not a documentary filmmaker from what I can tell. How much of that documentary style came from him versus from McQueen? How much of the way that the race was getting shot, the relationships, like the flashbacks, how much of the entire thing was really him, or was he just really coming in director for hire? And yeah, it felt like more a Steve McQueen film, I think, than a Katzin film.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I don't know. I mean, I directed a bunch of Mission Impossible and some Mannix and like a Dirty Dozen TV movie. I haven't seen them. I wouldn't know them for Katzin properties, but I feel like I understand the vibe of what I might get. To your point, though, this as a passion project of Steve McQueen, this felt like a guy who just wanted to show people what it's like to drive, and he did his best to get there.
Well, what it's like to be there. Like, I don't even feel like, I mean, there were some moments of like track footage where you get some interesting shots that I thought were pretty creative and cool, and it definitely felt like you're on the track. But between the two, I still felt like Grand Prix actually gave me a better feel of being on the track than this film did.
Do you think that there's anything to the fact that, like, we get a better feel for what it's like being on the track because we actually appreciate the characters more? Like, we're more connected to the people driving them?
I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think that we just I had a better sense of even the race in that film. Like, this one, like, there were just, cars going on for hours. And so you're just kind of watching this going, okay, I have a sense of these cars, going around in circles on this track, but I don't really have much of a sense other than that. Other than them, we're getting like the accidents and things like that. But I don't know. I felt like it wasn't depicted as much in a way where an outsider could as easily kind of grasp the nitty-gritty of the actual race.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting by comparison to look at this movie in hindsight after we've watched Ford v Ferrari again, because it's the same race and the story of how important the story of these cars is to telling the story of the race. And that's one of the things that we miss in this movie to its detriment.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, had you seen this before? Or is this
No.
your first time watching this one? Okay,
First
this
time.
was your first time. Gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, even the relationship with Lisa, like I wasn't sure, I guess it was interesting that we had this sense that Steve and Lisa had, I don't know if they, I don't know, because I can't remember who Balgetti was racing for, her husband. Was he the same company, the same team, or was he a different team with him when he had that accident?
Oh, that's a great question. Was he the Porsche Balgetti team? Was he Porsche?
See, I don't remember. I can't remember.
I
It
think
was
these- I think they
raining
were.
in that flashback, and so I can't remember. And it was night, and so I don't
Yeah.
remember. I don't remember seeing the cars enough. It's all shot kind of in such an artistic way, like the name Balgetti in flames, number 18, like things that but it's not really giving me like Porsche, Ferrari. Like I'm not getting stuff that really helped me. So I don't know what their relationship was, but there definitely is now some form of a relationship. Not a relationship like even friendship, or romantic or anything. It's just somebody they're both trying to deal with the fact that her husband is dead because of this situation that he had been in with him. And
Yeah.
I imagine that's difficult. And it's interesting in the way that they kind of work through it over the course of the film. Like there are moments that I like with these characters, like after, I don't know, there's another driver who's injured, who's the one who flies off the track and crashes through the sign. And interesting, very strange production, like filming decision as he's running from the car. It's slow motion, but then it's like they're ramping the speed of his run where it's like real fast, slow, real fast, slow, real fast. Like and so his body is doing this like weird herky jerky thing as he's trying to run away from this explosion. And then the car blows up and he's really injured. Were we meant to think that there is some also relationship with him? Because she seemed really distraught about him. She's at the hospital for him, happens to also see Michael while he's there. And then she leaves and all the reporters are like, oh, talking to her, like, we need to know what's going on with you and this guy. And that's when Michael comes out and kind of rescues her from the press and stuff. But I was like, was there a relationship there? Like, again, because there was that point where where McQueen notices her in the crowd, and then that other driver notices him noticing her, and I'm like, is there a triangle thing here going on? Like it was so thin in how they gave us any of this that I had no idea. I didn't know what I was supposed to think with any of this.
Okay. I think you're right. I don't think it gives us enough to know.
So you don't. Okay, so you don't know either.
My impression was that she and Michael had a relationship, but she was currently in a relationship with the driver who was the cool guy who didn't look at the explosion.
You wait. So when did she have a relationship with Michael?
Years
Before
ago.
Balgetti?
Yeah.
Okay, so wow. Well, okay, you're really taking that into a whole thing that this film doesn't give you. So
No, it doesn't. That's yeah. There's It's all vibes. Like it's all vibes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like the vibes, there are some vibes there, but it's so thinly portrayed that it's really like you can kind of go in all sorts of different directions with it. Like it just doesn't spell it out for you at all. And
to the point where it makes it reportedly they started production on this thing with no script. They started shooting with no script. You feel it. It feels like there was no plan.
Right. Yeah. Limiting dialogue, very little script. You just really get a sense of we're just here to film a race, and that McQueen was forced to include actual people and some lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yep. This is an auteurs racing movie for sure.
It is. Any other production elements? I mean, there was definitely some freeze frames. The heartbeat thing at the beginning was a little too much for me, as we're getting like heartbeat, like a slow heartbeat as we're cutting, as he's in his car getting ready for the green light. And then it starts going like frame by frame, right? Like, I'm like, okay, it was interesting for a minute and you just took it too far. Like, I was like, is this Katzin? I don't know is Katzin or McQueen, but it was just like, this was too much again.
It was too much. The editing I found distracting. I get what they're trying to do, but what they did was just make me want to look away and close my eyes. It was dizzying. There were places where they used the sort of the sound of the racing car and the flyby, the whip pan of the camera following, and then it would cut to a car going the other way, and they would go back and forth 7-10 times as cars were
every single car. Oh
every
my God.
single car. And I found that absolutely dizzying. I could not stand it. So,
oh my God. Yeah. It's like, let's film a tennis match that way. Cut. It's like, good God. Yeah.
But let's make sure we break the 180-degree rule every shot. Like, we'll just switch sides of the court every time, because cars need to go the other way too. I really did not care for. Most of the film, I really enjoy the sounds of the race itself. I think they use the sounds of the race inside the car. There's a moment where McQueen gets in the car, the crowd is going crazy, and the car door closes. And I loved this moment in the movie. Like, I really loved it because the sound of the world nearly goes away, but not completely. And I felt like I was in the car with him. I thought they did that really, really well. Those car doors, there's nothing to them. I don't think they would have actually muted the sound as much as they do in the movie. But I liked the feeling of it that they were going for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I mean, it has its interesting moments, but as an actual interesting film, it did not work for me.
McQueen reportedly said, "I'm not sure if this is a film about racing or a race that happens to be filmed." It is a little bit like I'm leaning toward the latter, but with no announcer telling you what's happening. And so you just have to feel it. And so
it did make me wonder, like, is this announcer actually at Le Mans, like describing for the crowd all of this, or did they add this for the film? Because my hunch is it's design. It was actually something that was at Le Mans. Because I was like, McQueen doesn't want to give us any clues about anything.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah. All right. Any other points?
No.
All right. Well, we'll be right back, but first, our credits.
I'm not ready for that. Here we go. The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Gilad Ben Amram, Icolics, Ian Post, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the world's oldest active endurance racing event. Teams from around the globe have gathered here to test their mettle, to push themselves and their machines to the limit in a grueling 24-hour race. But we're not just here to talk about the race, we're here to talk about endurance of a different kind. The endurance of passion, of dedication, of a love for something greater than yourself. we're here to talk about The Next Reel. For the uninitiated, The Next Reel is a film podcast that goes the distance. They're not just interested in the flashy, the trendy, the here today, gone tomorrow. They're in it for the long haul, exploring films from every corner of the globe and every era of cinematic history. And just like the teams here at Le Mans, they're not in it alone. They've built a community of film lovers, a pit crew of passionate individuals who come together to share their knowledge, their insights, and their love for the art of film. But to keep it going, to keep exploring, to keep pushing the boundaries, they need your support. And that's where the membership comes in. Think of it like a sponsorship. By becoming a member of The Next Reel, you're not just getting access to bonus content and ad-free episodes, you're investing in the future of film discussion. You're ensuring that this team can keep going, keep pushing, keep exploring the vast and exciting world of cinema. And the benefits? They're like a perfectly tuned engine. Monthly bonus episodes that dive deep into the nitty-gritty of filmmaking. Early access to each new episode so you can be part of the conversation as it's happening. And of course, ad-free versions of every episode so you can enjoy the ride without any interruptions. So as we watch these teams battle it out over the next 24 hours, ask yourself, what are you passionate about? What drives you? And are you willing to go the distance to support it? If the answer is film, if the answer is a community of like-minded individuals, if the answer is The Next Reel Film Podcast, then we invite you to join the team. Go to truestory.fm/join and become a member. Become a sponsor of this incredible journey through the world of cinema. Because in the end, it's not just about the destination, it's about the ride. And with The Next Reel, it's a ride you won't want to miss.
All right, Andy, sequels and remakes. Is there a part two? I think there's a part two. Please tell me there's a one. Duh.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost say the prequel is Ford v Ferrari, since it takes place, I think, 4 years before this one does. But no, there is a documentary, and I'd be curious to know what you would think of this. I'll never watch it. But Steve McQueen, The Man and Le Mans, 2015. It really is. It goes into his pursuit to make this film. So you're really kind of getting a sense of his passion in this project. A lot of interviews with all the people involved. And I imagine for people who are curious about the story of how it went from Day of the Champion with John Sturges at the helm to this, I think people might enjoy that. So anyway, have you seen that?
Nope.
Is that on your watch list?
Yep, it is actually, as of this movie.
Yeah.
But I have not watched it yet. So maybe I'll knock it out this week.
There you go. You'll have to let me know.
How to do it award season.
This was not a big awards film. It had one nomination at the Golden Globes for Best Original Score by Michel Legrand. Very period score. I often like Michel Legrand and often find him very period and have a hard time with. This is one of those films with the score I had a hard time with. It was so period. I couldn't get into the score at all. It didn't help me. It lost to Shaft. Very fitting loss.
That is a much fitting loss. Score. Yeah, for sure. All right. How to do at the box office? Did it make any money?
Well, for this Sturges, Katzin, McQueen vehicle, they had a budget of about $7.6 million or $59.4 million in today's dollars. The movie opened June 23rd, 1971, and unfortunately could not find its audience. It's estimated to have earned around $5.5 million or $43 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted loss per finished minute of about $155,000. Its reception led to the production company, McQueen Solar Productions, declaring bankruptcy. Luckily, McQueen's passion project gained a cult following and is now considered a classic of the genre by people who care. I don't consider it a classic of the genre. No, thank you.
Okay, you're pretty hardcore. I liked the movie for what it was. It's not for everybody.
It works better for me when I do think of it in that Frederick Wiseman documentary sense of like, here's a race, and we're just going to kind of like capture what it's like to have this race. Although I also feel like in a Frederick Wiseman film, I actually have a better understanding of the world. I think it's a lot of things here that just are creative, and I like that McQueen is doing something unique and interesting, and he had a desire to tell it in a very particular way. It doesn't work for me, but I appreciate that there are people out there it works for.
It's a big swing. Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, Ron Howard's 2013 film, Rush. Our second Rush film that we will have covered.
Wow. This is a palate cleansing rush. Is it me? Is it you?
It's you.
Is it me? All right, here we go. There's a lilting documentary kind of score over, I think, Ken Burns.
Okay.
Some film enthusiasts merely watch movies. Others log them. These are the diehards, the spreadsheet keepers, the stats junkies, the ones who know exactly how many films they've watched this year and how many of them starred Mads Mikkelsen in a sweater. They live by a code. They track, they rate, they review. They debate whether a heart emoji counts as a coherent, critical stance. It does. At the center of their cinematic garage, Letterboxd. For the true competitors, there's Pro, offering 0 ads, personalized stats, streaming filters, and enough data visualization to make a Swiss race engineer weep with joy. Support the show and upgrade your ride at thenextreel.com/letterboxd. By using that link, you'll save 20% on your upgrade, and it works for renewals as well. Because in the race for cinematic clarity, it's not just how fast you watch, it's how well you remember what the hell you watched on Tuesday 3 weeks ago. thenextreel.com/letterboxd. We'll see you in the pit.
There it is. In the pit.
In the pit. Okay. Oh, Letterboxd. Andy. So, how bad is it?
I've really been debating on this, like, because I was like, when is this thing going to end? Kill me, put me on the track and drive over me. I hated it, man. But I loved some of, like, I really did appreciate that they tried this documentary style. Like, I appreciate what they did. It didn't work for me. I'm like, is it 1 star or is it 2 stars? I'm going to just say 1 because I felt misery while I worked through this one. This is a tough one for me.
I think that if there is a purpose, if there's someone who comes to my house and says, "Hey, Pete, do you have any old footage of Le Mans from 1970? I'll say, you bet. Let's go watch Le Mans from 1970. But I don't think I'm going to come back to this movie very often. I'm going to give it 3 stars, no heart.
Wow, okay.
I love what it tried to do. I love my experience as a fan in some of the areas of the film. As a movie, it doesn't give me a whole lot. Maybe 3 stars too high, but no heart. I feel like I'm sending a signal.
All right. Send that signal.
You don't
the no heart signal.
Enough of the no heart signal.
No, but I mean, here's the thing. I get it. It's for some people. Like, some people are going to pull more out of this than I did. Like, it's just like, for me, I'm not a race fan. So just watching these cars, I'm just like, okay, I don't know what hour I'm in. I don't know if I should be caring about any of this anymore. Like, it was really not, it just didn't play well. So, yeah, I appreciate that some people will get a lot more out of this than me. It just wasn't my thing. So there it is. That will average to 2 stars, no heart, over on our account on Letterboxd, which is at The Next Reel. You'll find me there at Soda Creek Film, and you can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about Le Mans? We would certainly love to hear your thoughts on this one. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
All right. This was I imagine was an easy search for you. Find the find the dunkiest of dunks and go for it. But if you don't mind, mine has sound effects, so I'd like to get this out early.
Yeah, please.
All right. This is from Graham, 3.5 stars. Put it there. That's the spot. Perfect lines. It's getting wet. Faster, faster. Hear the screams? Ah, it's over already? The gulf between uncomfortable periods of intense silence and the raging metallic soundtrack of a Porsche 917 powered Sex on Wheels Flat 12 makes the knees tremble. Steve McQueen's not bad either. This is the kind of review I expect from this movie. These are car people.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got?
Well, my review is by Patrick Willems, who had this to say. I wonder how mad Steve McQueen, a guy famously obsessed with car racing, was that he passed on Grand Prix and then spent 5 years trying to make his own racing movie, and then he finally made it, and none of the racing scenes are as good as the ones in Grand Prix. But to your point, like the two comments are clearly by people who are car fans because they are totally angry at his comment and the fact that, no. This is the one with the good racing scenes. And I'm like, okay, whatever you say, but I don't agree.
Yeah, I think I struggle with that more and more, especially in the context of I think Le Mans needs a story. I think the race itself is grueling if you're a part of it, and it's exciting if you win it. And there's not a lot to make a movie out of without some sort of a story. Just the race isn't enough. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting, very interesting like flip from what we had last week, where it was just too much story and like too much melodrama. We're like, oh my god, just give me the race. And now we see they gave us the race. We're like, I kind of want some story too. There has to be a balance, Right. And that's what we don't have between these two films.
Yeah. All right. What do we got?
You gotta say thanks, Letterboxd. That's what.
Thanks, Letterboxd. Thanks.